There you go.
Okay, hi there, everybody. Welcome. Glad you were able to make it. Our training today is on positive parenting for preschoolers. I'm your presenter, Camille Hereth. I've been a counselor for about a decade, working primarily in social services with women and families. I was a foster home licensor and a foster parent for several years, and now have 3 children of my own. I'm a trauma-informed caregiving specialist for the Alliance Cares, and the topic we're covering today comes up in all areas I work with women and families. My teaching style, I like to read the information on the slides, just considering different learning styles for people, and then also add in more information. So topics for today, different parenting styles, child-centered play, social and emotional coaching. We're going to talk about how to use effective commands, how to use rewards, routines, household rules, the ignore strategy, and then some questions and resources. So first, we want to consider, what is your parenting style? This is typically rooted in your own experience growing up. So, and we want to also consider, what does discipline mean? So discipline is the practice of training someone to behave in accordance with rules or code of conduct, so they adopt desirable future behavior. Punishment is inflicting suffering on someone for their past behavior. It's not permitted for caregivers. Discipline means to teach. That is the root of the word, the Latin word, and we want to find ways for parents to do this by guiding children rather than managing their behavior. When we manage children's behavior, we lose those opportunities to teach them skills that they must learn on their own when they're adults. And so when we look at this grid over here, these are the 4 different parenting styles. So first, there's permissive. And we don't necessarily have to fit all into one category. People can be a combination of 2 or can even vacillate between 2 or 3 depending on circumstances, their stress level, things like that. But most people have a stronger, like one that's more heavily they lean towards. So permissive is very child-driven, whatever the child wants, rarely gives or enforces rules, overindulgent. A lot of times I will see people doing this from a place of guilt, like when a child has been in care with a foster parent or relative placement, whatever, and then as they start to do visitations or the child is removed back home with biological mom or dad, I'll see this permissive parenting happening because there's a lot of guilt about whatever happened to have them removed from care. Authoritative parenting, they use it to solve problems together with the child. There's clear rules and expectations, open communication, and then natural consequences. This is the most balanced form of parenting style, the one that's most collaborative and healthy for kids. Authoritarian is very maladaptive. It's very parent-driven, where there's strict rules, there's punishment, often physical abuse is included, emotional abuse. It's one-way communication, that idea of it's my way or the highway. Little consideration for the child's social, emotional, and behavioral needs. And so it's very rigid parenting, spanking, standing in the corner, things like that. And so we will often see this type of parenting with families that become involved with the department. And then neglectful, just that word neglect is pretty apparent that is not the approach you want to take. Parents that are neglecting or neglectful in their parenting approach are uninvolved or absent, provides little nurturance or guidance, indifferent towards a child's social, emotional, and behavioral needs. And when we see parents that use a neglectful approach to parenting when they're babies, the babies are typically failure to thrive because they're not getting that attention, that affection, that bond and attachment that they need. So I want you to just keep in your mind which area you think you tend to gravitate towards. And at the end, we'll talk about that a little bit. A lot of times, so like I was raised with authoritarian And so there might be moments where there's like this internal battle of like, it's because I said so, this is how it is, but that's not collaborative with kids, right? And so parents or caregivers can also feel guilt for what they innately feel their style to be, but you can also do a lot of work to not have that be what you use when you're doing parenting. And to know that it's a process, it's a continuum, right? Parenting is never perfect. So when we're using positive discipline strategies with kids, this presentation is about preschoolers, but all of these concepts apply to toddlers as well, kids in like the 12 months up to 6 range. But we really want to let kids lead the play. And it looks like they're deciding what they want to do and you're following their lead. Um, it really sounds like you're describing a lot of what they're doing, almost like a sportscaster. This lets them know that you're paying attention to them and also gives them lots of language exposure. There's a ton of research out there that shows babies, toddlers, preschoolers, the more language exposure they have, the higher academic outcomes. And so one way that we can be really giving them that positive attention is just describing everything that they're doing. Um, and when we're doing that, it also prevents us from doing a lot of question asking. We're just labeling the things we're noticing. And so we're not putting them in a position where they have to necessarily answer us. They're just able to be feeling recognized and seen in their play. You want to consider your pacing. So making sure that you're not talking really fast, you're not asking a lot of them really fast, you're just following along at their pace. Going back to this concept of child-led, you're really following along. Where are they at with their pacing of play? This is a time when you can be looking for opportunities to do persistence coaching and practicing social emotional skills at a neutral time. We'll talk later about social emotional skills, but a neutral time is a time when there's no stress behind it. They're not having a tantrum. They're not throwing a fit. You're not trying to get them out the door somewhere. You're just playing with them, right? So it's a neutral time. And persistence coaching is going to be when kids are, like, we'll look at this example right here. If this preschooler is stacking the Legos, and you know that that's hard for her, you're using encouraging words like, you can do this, you've got it, nice job, look at the next one, and really encouraging them to keep trying. This is especially supportive for kids that struggle when they get frustrated and dysregulate super easily. And so if you are giving them that supportive language and then asking, do you want me to help you? Can I help you? Being permission based. So this mom like stepped in and she helped. But a big piece of this play is you're being child directed. So you're actually asking permission. Is it okay if I help? Do you want my help? And kids are driven for independence, right? And so it's okay if the answer is no, and they're going to still be able to be supported with that language you're using for them. So, uh, as caregivers, you're super busy, right? It's a lot of work to run a household, have kids, all the things. It's not practical to play with kids all day, every day. And the concept of child-led play, child-centered play, is we're doing it 5 to 10 minutes a day intentionally. And that is trying to do that one-to-one individual time. So if you have more than one child in your home, this can be challenging. And just know that, okay, I'm going to separate out, this much time per child with this child-centered play. Um, and what research shows us, what you probably know as caregivers, is that kids will do anything for attention, negative or positive behavior. And so by systematically creating time for play like this, it will lower their need for the negative behavior and also lower that behavior pattern. Once kids start to get into that behavior pattern of seeking attention in a negative way, it can be really difficult to get out of that pattern. And conversely, some kids, when they get that negative attention, they're like, whoa, oh my gosh, this feels new, this feels good, and they can switch it really quick. But the idea really is letting them lead the play, letting them be the expert. If they're saying this is the yellow Lego is red, the blue Lego is purple, we're not correcting them. We are just simply labeling what it correctly is. If they want to play dress up and they're putting their shirt on backwards, that part, that doesn't matter. We can be supportive in what they're doing as long as they're not hurting themselves or others and doing everything we can to just let them lead that play. Something else to think about with a child-centered play, think about how many times in a day children this age get to make a decision. How many times is it up to them? How many times do they get a choice? Typically not often. Typically they're told what their schedule is, they're told what they need to be doing. And for these few minutes a day, we're giving them an opportunity to have autonomy and to decide what you're going to do, and also celebrate them for those really good ideas and give them a lot of really good attention for it. So when we're doing this child-centered play, I had mentioned we want to be acting like a sportscaster. And so just really thinking about all of the different things you can be teaching them. We call this academic coaching when we are using what we're describing in play to be teaching kids. So this example here, I'll look at, I have the blue block and there's the green block, and we can stack it on top with the orange block, and we can put four on top of each other or four in a row. And look, you have on the white shirt and the white sock. And so here's some different things you can be describing: colors, concepts like up, down, left, right, big, small, rough, soft, shapes, emotions, and social skills. So even right here, if he was like rubbing his legs against the carpet, she might say like, oh, that carpet feels really soft, doesn't it? Or, oh, that carpet's so scratchy. And really just be looking for anything that they're doing to be describing. These kids over here, mom could be describing like, oh, you're going so fast. And, when you're reading a book, obviously that's a lot of language for them. But another benefit of using this descriptive commenting that you are definitely using in this child-directed play, we can't be playing with them all the time, right? And so thinking about when you're doing things like the dishes or making dinner or driving in the car or getting ready for school, when kids don't necessarily always have your full undivided attention. But if you're in the kitchen and they're playing with some Legos on the ground in the living room and you can see that and you're describing what they're doing, they're feeling like, oh, I'm still getting their attention, even though they're not sitting right here. And so that might reduce their need for that negative attention seeking with a negative behavior. So I'd love to, you can say out loud or put in the chat section other things that you describe with your kids in play, things you are teaching them through play. Hmm. Anyone think of anything? Nothing? How about letters? Teaching them letters, teaching them hot and cold, teaching them different, I was going to say different textures, but I guess like rough, soft, but there's also other textures besides that. Teaching them words like door and bowl and cup, clock, desk, whatever it is that's around you. The light is bright, the light is dim. Here's some names of different animals, songs. Yeah, full, empty, voice inflection. Yep. And one of the great things about reading to kids, so we're using all this descriptive language too, right? But then also in and out, that's a good one. Um, Reading books to them every day because the words that are used in books are going to be different than the words that are used in the everyday language of your home. So again, it expands that vocabulary. Um, so there's a few different things that we can do to help expand that vocabulary. So the descriptive commenting with all of the different language exposure, research also shows that eating one meal together a day increases academic outcomes because of all the language that happens. And then reading books, nursery rhymes is so good for kids this age because that rhyming helps their brain learn language and also has a lot of repetition and different sounds. And same thing with listening to songs, listening to music, all of that is really good for that language growth and development. There's one other comment. Names of plants. Oh, that's a great one. I love that. Yeah, so names of plants, different animals, lots of different things we can be describing. Um, so yeah, we're using this descriptive commenting, really being very intentional about it when we're doing the child-directed play and then implementing it different times throughout the day. A lot of times a trap people can fall into is like trying to tell their child what they should be doing or what they could be doing, or if they're coloring something, if they're coloring the pumpkin purple, no, pumpkins are orange. But think about, reflect on, like, is that harmful for them to color the pumpkin purple? No, it's not. And you're giving them an opportunity to have choice and autonomy at that moment of the day. You can teach them that pumpkins are orange and also celebrate that that was a choice they made for coloring that pumpkin and focusing on what a great job they're doing, focusing what a great job they're doing, coloring. We want to be focusing on what they're doing well at that time, especially if they're being really still, quiet, calm, recognizing those things because those are skills that are really hard for most preschoolers. And then when we have preschoolers that come to us with trauma, then they can dysregulate really easily. And so we want to put extra emphasis on those behaviors like being calm and focused, regulated, right? So, and then ending play. A lot of children dysregulate when you need to end play or remove attention from them, especially kids who come from trauma and insecure households, because you're withdrawing your attention. So we want to use a transition warning to help them know what to expect is going to happen next. So what that's going to sound like is, okay, Jamie, in 10 minutes, we're going to be done playing. And then you're going to give a warning. Okay, in 5 minutes, we're going to be done playing and let them know what's next. We're going to brush our teeth next, or we're going to get in the car to go to preschool next. And then a 1 minute countdown. One thing that can be really helpful for this is a timer because it takes it out of away from you a little bit and puts it into something else. So if you have a timer on your phone, I would say to never have your phone out when you are doing this play. Like screens are not going to be a part of this play with preschoolers at all. Um, Maybe, but use like if that's what you need to use for a timer, that's fine. But use a timer on your microwave or, you know, um, the dollar store has like those kitchen timers and just really get in that habit of using that transition warning to let them know it's going to be coming to an end soon. And then also let them know what to expect. So I would love to hear, how do your kids respond when you have to end play with them, when you have to remove your attention from them?
My grandson does not deal well with it at all. And
Yeah.
he has anxiety attacks. He's only 3, but he's been through enough that he has anxiety attacks. And so when attention's being taken away when he doesn't want it to be, even
Mhm.
with, and we do the warnings that you have this much longer, or after this we'll be done. It's still, unless he is having a really good day, it can still result in the meltdown that we then have to go through steps to deal with breathing exercises and stuff to help him get back to center.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really hard. It sounds like he's like there's a reason for this, right? And you identify that, and you have to build into your transition an actual transition, right? So for some kids, it's not going to be just transition warnings. There's going to have to be some actual transition time before they can realistically move on to the next thing. So I just want to say great job for recognizing that and really providing that for him, that he needs transition time. And so for kids like that, really systematically building that in and letting them know ahead of time, recognizing, validating that feeling. I know it's going to be hard when we have to end this, and we're going to be able to have time to support you until you feel calm again after that. And having something to look forward to after that, right? So we'll talk a little bit later about some other tools that I will plug back into that specific situation because there's some other things that can be supportive for that. That's why sometimes it's helpful to tell kids what's coming up next because they like to know what to expect. Routine, predictability is very important for all kids, especially for kids that have been through trauma and chaos. They may resist it because that's all they know is chaos, and they may resist and seem like that's the opposite of what they want is routine and predictability, but it's what they need more than anything. Luann, yes.
Do you think that sometimes kids respond to our voice when we're commanding? I mean, not really commanding, but it comes off that way, the way that we say it. Because sometimes we go into bargaining voice when we're trying to smooth into a transition. Like instead of me just stating it, I might say, okay, now get ready because we're gonna, and just the fact that I'm changing my voice is a trigger for some kids. Do you see that or no?
I think there's kids that have been through a lot of trauma that are very perceptive and they're very attuned to any slight change, and any slight change can equate to unsafe, right? And so they're not old enough at this age to really understand that that's what's happening in their brain, but that could be a piece of it, which is why coming up with predictability with this time together, coming up with that transition is going to be really important. But yeah, that's a good thought that they could be perceptive and picking up on any changes in you. And if you know that that transition is going to be hard, you may be giving that away in your voice and they pick up on that, right? Um, so other ways we can be child-centered when we're just moving throughout the home. Like I mentioned before, using that sportscaster narration when you're doing things, you're modeling a lot of things for them with intentional interactions. And so if you just have, Play-Doh out on the kitchen as you're walking by, you're just kind of commenting on what they're doing and you're modeling for them, like let's say you're folding the clothes and you're inviting them to be a part of that and you're showing them how to do it and you're talking about how they're doing it. We're not looking for perfection. We're just looking for involving them so that we can have those positive interactions while we still get other things done in the home. And um, modeling is also, it's like that back and forth mirroring that happens. That's one of the ways that they learn. And so we're looking for opportunities where we can model for them, which is teaching them those different skills. And so we talked about just what are some things that you would potentially describe in this picture if this was like your kitchen dining room. What could you describe? the items on the table by name, shapes, colors, shapes. Yep. Yeah. Also, you could describe the color of the kid's shirt. You could be describing that they're rolling out the Play-Doh. They're making it flat. It was a big ball and now they're making it flat. If they're making pancakes, you could be describing, oh, you're making pancakes. Kids at this age love to do pretend play. And so describing what it is that they're making, pretend play, using their imagination is really, really good for their brain development. And so we really want to be encouraging that in play. We want to be like practicing that with them in play to encourage them to do more of it. With screens, there's been a huge reduction in opportunities for imagination use and imaginary play for kids. And we really want to promote that when we're seeing it with kids. So, yeah, and that's another example of where we're not correcting them. If they say it's a pancake and it looks to you like no pancake you've ever seen, it doesn't matter in that moment. We're just really following their lead in the child-centered play. And then something else we can teach them in play and everyday interactions is social skills through what's called social coaching. So some social skills we can teach kids are sharing with each other, taking turns, saying please, thank you, excuse me, mealtime manners, waiting their turn, inside voices. And so these are really good examples of where that modeling really comes into play. So you are saying in front of and with with your kids and other people in the home, thank you, please. You're modeling saying excuse me, you're modeling waiting your turn. Lots and lots of modeling and then using those words like, so what do you say? Thank you, right? So we're giving them the language and we're modeling it a ton. What do you notice are benefits of teaching kids social skills? And what are some things you notice that get in the way? One thing I've noticed that can get in the way, depending on the age of when kids come into your care, is expectations from prior homes. And so if they're coming to your home from somewhere where those skills were not taught, then it is not natural to them. They don't know them and they might feel confused or even angry that that's an expectation in your home. And so we want to do this. We want to teach this in a way that isn't demeaning or degrading or making them feel bad about themselves. It's just we're infusing it into everyday life. Someone said, I think they take a lot of practice and consistency can be helpful. So, yeah. Yeah, it does take a lot of consistency and practice. These are things that we're going to be implementing every single day. We're going to be modeling these things for the kids. Someone said kids can feel excited and efficacious, though, to have an idea of what to do. Some benefits are they can learn to be more confident, independent in public, ordering themselves at restaurants, talking to others. Yeah. Yeah, and people usually really respond well when they see kids that have good manners, like teachers and servers at restaurants, like, wow, you're so polite, and people think it's adorable when they see kids with great manners. And so that can help them feel a sense of pride, right? Yeah. And consistency is definitely the key to all of these things. And consistency also equates to predictability and routine for kids, and that's really, really important for them. That helps them feel safe and secure is predictability, knowing what to expect. So if you're constantly modeling for them these social skills, then in effect, they're going to learn them, and that's going to give them a sense of safety because they know what to expect. The mealtime manners, it's like its own set of social skills. So these are some mealtime manners. Every family's different, right? But in general, family rules can include sitting down when you're eating, eating with your mouth shut, or not eating when you have food in your, or not talking when you have food in your mouth, sharing, like passing the food around, using utensils like your fork and your spoon, saying please and thank you. I would love to hear if anyone has any other mealtime rules that isn't on this list. But again, this really creates a sense of predictability for kids and routine. And so it's that sense of safety and security. Like I mentioned earlier, research shows that when families eat one meal together per day, it increases outcomes in kids significantly. And that's because of that language exposure. And so this can be really hard for a lot of families because they're so busy these days. But just trying to find that time to sit down and have everyone eat together. And this again looks like the modeling, right? The modeling principle. And so if we're expecting kids to be doing these things and we're doing it ourselves, another household rule a lot of families have is having screens away at the dinner table or not having dinner or certain meal in front of the TV. The real benefit of not watching TV or not watching some type of screen while eating is it teaches kids healthy eating habits. It teaches them to pay attention to their body, to understand when their belly is full, to look for those hunger cues, to look for those full cues, to be focusing on learning those skills like passing the food, using their utensils properly, paying attention to eating over the plate. If they're not focusing on eating and they're focusing on screens, they might not learn or be paying attention to that, which really is, it's a social skill to learn to keep your food on your plate. That's hard for a lot of preschoolers. I specifically noticed kids that have ADHD, and while kids aren't typically diagnosed this young with ADHD, but that's something that they have an extra hard time keeping the food on the plates. Oops. Trying to get to that chat. It keeps going away. Not using their device while eating. Yeah, I think it's in general a good rule to have any of the screens put away during the mealtime because then you're focusing on the language. This research data isn't going to be, you're not going to get this benefit of eating together as a family if people are on their devices because the focus isn't going to be on conversation, it's going to be on the device. And so then you are literally taking away an opportunity to have positive outcomes on their academic outcomes simply by having language exposure. Like that's a simple thing to do is to put it away during meal times. Not that getting devices put away is easy. It's hard for a lot of caregivers to take that away because kids are so driven to have them. But the more you have those predictable routines in place, they just clearly know what to expect. So if that's an expectation in your home, those are not out during mealtime, it becomes less of a struggle over time. So this is a whole list of its own social skills, the meal times, and just focusing on teaching those different pieces. For preschoolers, a couple things that can be helpful is starting off with using like a measuring, like those Pyrex measuring cups to teach them to pour juice or milk or whatever, having that out at the dinner table and having like small set of tongs for them to practice getting their food. I've been in ECAP preschools, which is like 3 and 4-year-olds, and it is incredible how well those kids can do all of that stuff. They share the food, they pass the food, they all clear their plates, they load the dishwasher, all of them. Like it's really incredible what kids at this age are able to do if we give them those opportunities. and model those skills and really use that persistence coaching, like, oh, you did it, nice job, and another big mealtime social skill is it's okay if we spill food. If kids, if they spill their milk, oh, okay, that's fine. Let's clean it up. You're modeling for them how to clean it up. You're not overreacting. You're acting like that's okay. That's a part of learning how to drink milk, how to have a meal. You're gonna maybe spill your plate sometimes, but we're teaching them how to clean it up. We're teaching them how to stay calm in that process. So you might not put out like the full picture and the full big bowl of the things, but you'll put it out more preschool size. So then we get into teaching kids emotions. And I'm going to keep going back to we're doing this through play with them, and we're doing this through everyday interactions with them. And so the best way to be teaching kids emotions is what we call emotion coaching, which is where we're labeling their emotions. And this helps teach kids self-regulation. It helps teach them how to learn other people's emotions and their own emotions. Examples of emotions to label in kids and model in toddlers and preschoolers and yourself is sad, mad, happy, frustrated, angry, excited, patient, nervous, scared, unsure, elated, proud, calm, curious, anxious. The average adult can list about 6 emotions. But as you can see from this emotions wheel, there are dozens and dozens of emotions. These are root emotions. And so these are those primary ones. And then from those emotions, and we have secondary emotions, and then we have these outside ones here. And yeah, and so for kids this age, something like this, I've seen these as like fridge magnets that has different emotions that they can point to. So it can be helpful to have some kind of graphic like this to ask them to show you how they feel as they're learning the emotions. But teaching kids emotions is teaching them to be emotionally intelligent. And that is more than half the battle of teaching kids how to be regulated in their emotions. So, a really, really helpful way to do this for kids is to label your emotions. This is really hard for a lot of adults to do because they were never taught emotions. They were never taught how to label their emotions. So for a lot of people, it has to be really intentional, but you are labeling, for example, I'm feeling really frustrated right now because there's a lot of traffic and we're going to be late, but I'm working really hard to keep my body calm. So you're normalizing that it's okay to have these difficult emotions and what you're trying to do to manage it in a positive way. We don't want to be hiding from kids those difficult emotions like sad and mad and frustrated and angry. What we actually want to do is to label that we're having those emotions, but then demonstrate how do we navigate that and handle that hard emotion in a positive way. So I'm really mad that the dog dropped my phone in the toilet and I'm trying to keep my body calm. Being calm is like the biggest word to couple with any difficult emotion because that's what you want to model for them. Because at this age, being calm is so hard for them when they're having most emotions, right? We want to teach them how to do that. And then the next step to that is how are you keeping your body calm? So, I'm taking deep breaths, I'm pressing my shoulder down, I'm taking big stretches, I'm doing jumping jacks. You're describing what you're doing to try to keep your body calm. And so going back to we were talking about persistence coaching, if someone is building Legos, stacking Legos, and you see that they're getting frustrated, you could say, wow, I can see that you're getting really frustrated that you can't get those two to go together, but look at what a good job you're doing keeping your body calm. And then you're adding, they don't know what calm means yet, right? At this age, they typically don't. And so you're saying you're not yelling, you're still sitting down, you keep trying, you're helping them understand what calm looks like and feels like, right? And so they're getting a lot of positive attention for managing that difficult emotion in a positive way. So they learn, oh, it's okay to have these big emotions and manage it in that difficult way. So the example of the grandson who has like big anxiety when you're having to remove your attention from him, he could be feeling really sad or fearful that he's losing your attention and he's maybe scared that he's not going to get it back again that day. So you could be praising or, acknowledging, I can see that you're really sad and scared and you're working really hard to try to get your body calm again, right? And so even if he's struggling with it, we can still recognize that he's trying, right? And so these other emotions that are hard for kids, like patient, like we really want to label, oh, I see you're trying so hard to be patient while waiting your turn. That's hard for kids. That's hard for a lot of adults. So we really want to celebrate that. You're doing such a good job of being patient. Recognizing when they're nervous, like we want to acknowledge that for them. Think about if you're having a difficult emotion and someone acknowledges it. That almost immediately, for a lot of parents, a lot of people, it's almost like a sigh of relief inside. You're like, oh, yes, thank you. That is what I'm feeling. It's the same for kids. They can also hear that tone in your voice, just that acknowledgement. And so, yeah, just bringing attention to the different emotions. It's also good to be, if you have another adult, another caregiver, a partner, a spouse in the home, be labeling that person's emotions too. So, Grandpa, I noticed that Grandpa was really excited when you showed him your drawing you did at preschool today. Or I was really grateful that Grandpa cooked dinner tonight because I was tired. So you're labeling other people's emotions, not just yourself and your preschooler, but you can be labeling everyone's emotions in the home. I have 3 kids. They're 12, 16, and 17, and the 17-year-old has lots of big emotions right now. It's his senior year, and it is adorable when my 12-year-old says, Morgan seems really overwhelmed right now with all of his senior applications. Morgan seems really frustrated right now. Like he will say what the 17-year-old is clearly expressing and not saying. It's pretty great. So would love to hear if you have any thoughts or what are some of the benefits of teaching emotions and then what can get in the way of trying to do that in your home.
I apologize if I'm really quiet and seem like I'm not participating. It's just I keep sneezing. I'm trying
Oh
not to
no,
sneeze in everyone's ear.
oh no, that's okay. I'm trying not to cough. I mentioned one thing that can get in the way, and that is if you were not raised really thinking about emotions and labeling emotions, that can make it really hard to label it. And that's where a tool like this or this can be really helpful to have out in the general area to just do a quick reference. Another thing that can get in the way is if kids are just like, no, no, I'm not that. No, I'm not that. No, I'm not mad. No, I'm not sad because they don't have that own self-awareness yet. And so that's where it's also helpful to be labeling those emotions with yourself and other people in the home because then they're able to see and make that correlation between that emotion and that action, right? So, yeah, this is a really, really important one for teaching regulation, especially for these kids that are coming from trauma. They often dysregulate easily. They often are just in a lot of fight or flight going on. And by teaching them, validating their emotions and teaching them their emotions, that's going to be hugely helpful for them. Someone said can help calm and regulate kids and help them feel validated and cared about and allowing skills for skill building. Yeah. Yeah. And emotion coaching is a skill building thing. It scaffolds. First, we're teaching them to label the emotions. We don't have the pictorial here, but we're also, we can also teach them to look for the emotion in their body. So if you ask them, are you feeling anxious right now? And they might say, I don't know. Well, what are some things associated with anxiety? For a lot of kids and adults, it's tummy hurts, my hands are sweaty, I have tension in my neck, right? There's some really telltale signs when a child is feeling anxious. So we can help them start to correlate how their body feels with what that emotion is. That's the skill building, scaffolding that happens over time. So another really important piece of positive parenting with preschoolers is lots of praise, practicing the process, not expecting perfection. Self-regulation is challenging for toddlers and preschoolers. That's why they have tantrums. They're also learning how to communicate their needs. If language is delayed, this can make it even more frustrating for them. Speech and language pathologists have seen a 3,000% increase in referrals since 2020. And that's because of the significant lack of language exposure. So preschoolers right now are probably not going to necessarily have that delay the same ones as preschoolers we had a year or 2 years ago, but they still definitely could have some. 3 years ago was 2022. Yeah, we could still definitely be having some. And then you add into it a home where there was abuse and neglect, and high likelihood there was not the amount of language that was needed to have healthy language development and be able to effectively communicate their needs. And then trauma can also reduce self-regulation, reasoning, and problem solving in children. That prefrontal cortex is super overactivated. That's the part of the brain that's reasoning and judgment and all of that. So what that can sound like is when you're trying to model these things, mom is really frustrated that you aren't following directions, but I'm trying to stay calm. You look so happy to be petting the kitty. I like how you're being so gentle with him. Wow, dad is so considerate. He brought me my plate of dinner for me. So see how we're connecting an emotion with an action and it's sounding positive. We're also bringing praise into it when we can. I'm so proud of you for staying calm, even though I know you're angry that you lost your toy. I can see that you're sad about having to stop playing. It's okay to be sad. I love how you're being persistent and trying so hard with building the block tower, even though it is hard for you. And considering how you feel when someone validates how you feel. So we are, what was I going to say? Part of the trick when there's frustration going on, or anger or anxiety is we want to throw these things out. We want to catch them before the total meltdown happens, which is really hard. And so if you know there's certain things that trigger your child to cause a meltdown, we want to look for those opportunities to praise as like right up until that minute before it happens. So an example would be right here, lost a toy. So if that's something that you know they do often and it really freaks them out, and like the second you notice that toy is calm, wow, you're doing such a good job of being calm. I know that's really sad for you and angering, and you're doing such a great job of staying calm. It's okay, and just really be supportive. in praising the process. If they're crying, but they're not totally throwing a tantrum, we're still going to praise that. We're still going to say, wow, you're doing a great job keeping your body calm. It's okay to be sad, you know, and just really looking for those opportunities to support those really big feelings and recognize how they're managing it really well. So next we're going to look at how do we label, what are some emotions we can label in these different pictures. So this girl looks like she might be kind of ornery. Maybe she's being very defiant. Maybe mom or aunt or foster parent, excuse me, has asked her to do something and she's just like, nope, I'm not going to. And then caregiver is also not looking very happy too. So she could say something like, I can see that you are really unhappy about having to pick up your toys. I'm feeling frustrated that you keep saying no. Let's both take a couple breaths together to try to calm down. So mom is validating her experience, modeling being calm, and then also validating this is how she's feeling. So it's okay if we're having dysregulated emotions or big emotions, I guess, because of their actions. That's natural and human. The important thing is to also model what we're doing to manage those emotions in a positive way. With that, it's also okay to say, you know what, I need to step outside for a couple minutes and take a break because I'm feeling really upset. That's totally okay too. You're basically teaching your child how to use a timeout and in a calm and effective way, right? And stepping away and then coming back. So this child is really upset, maybe dropping him off at preschool, although not likely without a shirt on, but maybe just ended visitation and he's really sad that mom or dad had to leave. And so validating his emotions of like, I know you're really sad. I know you're really upset. I'm here for you. It's okay to be upset. Just labeling those emotions and providing that comfort coupled with the the labeling of the emotions. Right here, she looks maybe unsure, confused, upset. She's definitely not looking happy. And mom here is looking pretty frustrated. And this happens too. That's why I have this picture in here. Like, we lose our cool. And it is okay to come back and say, you know what? I got really upset and I yelled and I shouldn't have, and I'm sorry. It is always okay to come back and apologize and show that we're praising the process, not perfection. Here, this dad is happy, she's happy, so it's great to label those things too, like, wow, it makes me so happy when you clean your room by yourself, or wow, it makes me happy to see you happy when you come home from preschool. I love that you had such a great day. This looks more like a kid that's like not wanting to go into preschool. Like maybe, you seem sad that you have to leave for a little while. Give reassurance. I know it'll be okay. But yeah, just recognizing how they're feeling. This mom looks super overwhelmed. So even just to yourself, recognizing like when you're having big, hard feelings and acknowledging that, validating that experience for yourself, that this is really hard. I'm having a really hard time. I'm feeling whatever it is. Also practicing labeling those emotions with your partner and with other people that you're collaborating with, saying to a support person, I'm feeling super overwhelmed. Saying to the social worker, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling frustrated. Just learning to identify your emotions and validate that experience for yourself. So this is a really big piece of supporting kids that are in your care, for sure. So then the next piece of positive parenting we want to look at is how to use commands effectively. This is not something people often think of, the importance of how effective commands are. What is what can be common is people don't realize that they will just rattle off a bunch of commands at once. When kids come from trauma, they tend to dysregulate easily. They tend to, the processing speed is a little bit slower. And what that might look like is you say something to them and they just blankly stare at you, act like they don't hear you, but they might not have actually processed everything that you've said. So there's a lot of repetition that needs to happen. And then frustration can happen. And so we really want to be clear on how do we be effective with our commands with these kids. So we want our commands to be concise, polite, and effective. We do not want to use question commands. We want to use if, then commands, when, then commands, and choice commands. We also want to be making sure that we have their attention. So if it's time to pick up the toys, Susie, look at me, look in my eyes, state the command effectively. When you put your toys away, then we can go grab a snack. You're giving that clear, concise, polite, effective command, and you're checking for understanding. So saying, do you understand what we need to happen next? And asking them to repeat it back. That can be a really effective strategy, is looking for the eye contact and then asking for it to be repeated back. So instead of, can you put your clothes away? That's a question, right? So it's not uncommon that a preschooler might think, well, no, I don't want to put my clothes away. They might actually say that out loud to you because they think you have given them a choice. Or they just might think it in their head, no, I don't want to put my clothes away. And then they won't do it. And then you'll come back a couple of minutes later and say, I told you to put your clothes away. And in their mind, they're like, no, you didn't. You asked me to. This is a really, really common trap that caregivers get into. And a large part of this is because we live in somewhat of a permissive society where it's more polite to be kind of passive. That looks like you're being more polite. Like, oh, is it okay if you bring a side dish for the potluck? Like, potluck implies you're going to bring something. And so people will be polite by stating it as a question. But when we're using commands, talking about using commands effectively with kids, we want to be very direct, but do it in a way that's polite, right? So instead of, can you put your clothes away? Put your clothes away, please. Or if, then, when, then commands gives choice. So if you put your clothes away, then you can have a cookie. When you put your clothes away, then you can have a cookie. Or when you put your clothes away, then you can come sit at the dinner table, right? So there's some incentivization for them too. And just be more direct. Put your clothes in the hamper, please. So you're telling them exactly what to do. So this isn't even just put your clothes away, you're telling them where to put it. You're setting them up for success. I think it's time to put your coat on and leave. So what's not clear about that? Anyone have any thoughts? I think it's time to put your coat on and leave. Does that sound like you're sure it's time to leave? It's implied, but it's not clear. I think it's time. So to be effective, concise, polite, and effective, you want to say it's time to leave. Put your coat on, please. Yeah, someone said, I think means you aren't sure. Yep, doesn't sound like you're sure. Instead of be careful, that's a trap that's really easy to fall into. I see this all the time. Parents will say, be careful. I said to be careful. There's a car coming. Being careful, you're implying that they know what to be looking out for, what to be careful for. That's a super, super vague comment or command. It's not even a command. It's a vague statement. So we want to tell them what to be looking for. Watch out for that poop on the ground so you don't step in it. Stop so the car can go by so you're not hit. Be more gentle with your brother. When you're petting the cat, stay away from the ears. When you're petting the cat, use gentle pets and show them what gentle looks like. Don't assume they know. So staying away from that general, be careful. And then giving choice. So a huge struggle for preschoolers is the car seats. It can be. So we can say you can put your buckles on or I will put them on for you. So it's happening either way, but we're giving some opportunities for autonomy that they can do it or you will do it for them. You can put your shoes on or I will do it for you. You can brush your teeth or I'm going to do it for you. You can brush your hair or I'm going to do it for you. This is a hugely helpful approach with things that need to get done, that they are fighting you on, because giving choice can help them feel in control again. If we're using let's language, like let's pick up the toys, just be sure to only be using let's and we statements if you intend to help. So if you say, let's pick up the toys and they're not helping, they may think, well, I don't have to do it too. Or, well, if she's not doing it, I'm not doing it. So just being really careful with that. Some if-then examples that can be really helpful, especially with things that are hard for kids. So if you can stay seated at the dinner table the whole time, then you can have some dessert. It's really hard for some kids to stay seated the whole time. When you hang up your coat, then you can have a sticker. So you're incentivizing them. When we use commands like this, it also reduces the need for more commands, especially if you're looking for understanding. Because they have something they want to work towards if you're being really systematic with what they're getting as a result of following through with that command given. We also want to focus on the positive opposite behavior. So oftentimes caregivers will want to tell kids what they don't want them to do. Stop running in the house, stop yelling, stop whining, stop hitting, don't bite. We want to focus on what we want them to do. So if you don't want them running in the house, then you're telling them what to do, walking feet. They're hearing what you want them to do. That helps their brain do that thing a lot better if you're using the language of what you want them to do. When you're saying stop running, no running, all they're hearing is running. And it almost like reinforces that behavior. So the brain is having to work extra hard. Instead of no yelling, we're going to say what we want them to do. We want them to use inside voices or quiet voices. Maybe inside voices isn't clear to some kids because in former homes, they could yell and scream all they want. But in your home, we're quiet when we're inside. It's also helpful to tell them where they can do that. So running is for outside, walking feet is for inside. Yelling is for outside, quiet voice is for inside. Whining. This is a huge, huge, huge issue for a lot of caregivers. Very common for preschoolers to do a lot of whining, or using almost like baby talk. And that's just grates on a lot of people's nerves. It's not necessarily anything they're doing wrong. But it's harder to listen to them when they're using that kind of voice. So saying to them what you need from them. I need you to use a big boy voice. I need you to use a big girl voice. When you use a big boy voice, I can listen to what you're saying. When you use a big girl voice, I will try to understand and help you. So stating the expectation. Rather than saying stop hitting, no hitting, you're telling them what you want. You want them to use gentle hands, and you oftentimes have to model what that looks like, especially with babies, animals, and giving those gentle reminders frequently and often. Biting, super common for like late toddler, early preschool years, developmentally appropriate. Tell them what teeth are for. Your teeth are for eating, or if they're biting out of like there's something going on, labeling that emotion. I see that you're really frustrated right now, and then tell them what they can go do. So we want to focus on what we want them to do. And then using incentives and rewards. Lots of different ways to do this. You can use a reward system such as a PowerPoint or a point system, sticker chart or grab bag. Some steps to introduce a reward system would be explain the goal at a neutral time. We talked about earlier what that means. Just a time when we're not rushing out the door to go anywhere. There's not a lot going on. You're not trying to eat a meal. And then you want to pick one behavior systematically to work on it at a time. If you pick too many at a time, it's going to be overwhelming, and then you can't give enough focus to that one thing to create systematic change. So we're not going to be working on stop biting, stop hitting, stop whining, stop running in the house all at once. We're going to pick one thing. Doesn't mean we're saying it's okay for those things, but for the purposes of a reward system, we're picking one thing to systematically focus on. Explain what method you're using. So Susie, I've noticed that you've been having a really hard time keeping your hands to yourself with your brother lately. So we're going to do a sticker chart, and you're going to show them the sticker chart. And for every day you don't hit your brother, you're going to get a star. And after 5 days of no hitting, you're going to get, and then you together come up with whatever the thing is. That's ensuring the buy-in. If you pick what it is and it's not something they're excited about, they're not going to work hard for it. So for some kids, that's quality time. They want to watch a movie with you. They want to go get ice cream with you. For some kids, they love a candy bar. For some kids, they love extra time on a tablet. You know, it needs to be something that they're incentivized by. Don't make them wait too long for it, and don't take rewards once they've earned it. So if Susan went 5 days, no hitting, she got 5 stickers, and those 5 days are Monday through Friday, and then Sunday is when you're going to go get ice cream together. That's almost too long to wait for a preschooler, and if she does hit in those 2 days, she still gets to go get the ice cream with you because she's earned it. She's already done those 5 days. We're not going to take it away. Okay. Kids with trauma need that brain activation of immediacy to connect action with reward. And so one thing to note is the difference between a bribe and a reward. So a bribe is giving something before it's earned and then expecting the desired behavior, versus a reward. It's when a child gets something after they've completed the desired behavior that they're incentivized to work towards. So whatever behavior you're working on in a point system or a sticker chart or grab bag, be extremely liberal with your praise for the behavior you're working on increasing. And this is how you systematically create change. And you're going to use the language that you want to focus on. So if you're focusing on hitting, great job, Susie, for keeping your hands to yourself. Great job, Susie, using gentle hands over and over and over and over again. Looping in that emotion coaching. I see that you're frustrated and you're still keeping your hands to yourself. Great job. So we're starting to build these concepts together. The point system is similar to the sticker chart. Sticker chart is more of a visual thing. A point system can be like for every day they don't hit, they get a point. And after so many points, they get a reward. And then a grab bag, you can go to like the dollar store or something, but then pick like 10 or 15 different things to put in the bag. And then after every week or 5 days they don't hit, they get to pick something out of that bag. So whichever approach you think works best. And it's different for every kid. Here's some examples of behaviors to reward for preschool age kids: using gentle hands, sharing, using their words instead of lashing out. They're very much still learning this at this age. It's really hard for them. And so rather than, having a tantrum, they're expressing what their need is. Staying calm, walking feet in the home, using the toilet. So we can use the same approach with toilet training. I'd love to hear if you can think of any other behaviors you would want to work on with your preschooler. Yeah, so even though right here it's got like all of these different lines, which is oftentimes what reward charts are going to look like, we're really only going to focus on like one, maybe two at a time. It just becomes overwhelming and not possible to focus on it as much as you need to. And think about toilet training. Like, no kid goes off to college still getting rewards when he's pooping and peeing in the toilet, right? Like, we don't have to do this forever. We do it until we've created that change consistently, and then we can move on to, oops, the next thing. Some comments. Someone mentioned not using the device while eating, so we could create a reward chart for. Yep, that's a great one. Can help calm and regulate kids. Oh wait, maybe I'm reading my comments wrong. Can we get that PDF and perhaps the emotion chart, then we can print it home? Yeah. I actually have a reward chart that I designed that I can send to Luann to share with everybody. And I will also include the emotion chart, the wheel. That's something I paid for. Not jumping on the couch is a great one. Yes. So the positive opposite of not jumping on the couch is sitting on the couch, right? And so that's what you're going to focus on. Susie, you're doing such a great job sitting on the couch. You're doing such a great job of keeping your bottom on the couch. You're doing such a great job of keeping your feet off the couch. That's what you're focusing on. Potty training is our biggest struggle. So, this is a great thing to use with potty training, and I would put the reward chart or I wouldn't use a grab bag because there's too many times in a day you're needing to recognize what they're doing, but doing the point system or the reward chart and having it taped to the wall in the toilet, in the bathroom. If you have several bathrooms in your house, fine, figure that out, but or have it in one general location. And yeah, this is a great system for potty training. The next thing we're going to talk about with rewards is using spontaneous rewards. This is super helpful for potty training. So when we're doing spontaneous rewards, we're doing it immediately after the desired behavior. So it needs to be something small, and it needs to be something that's economical to do several times throughout the day. So stickers, Tic Tacs, little candies like this. Some kids love raisins. Just something you can easily have on hand. And so every time they use the toilet, they're going to get one of these spontaneous rewards. And maybe at the end of the day, if they have no accidents, they get a star on their sticker chart. So you're still rewarding and recognizing the efforts, and we're still praising the process, not expecting perfection. So if Susie is really having a hard time not hitting her brother, then or using gentle hands with her brother, maybe the first couple weeks she gets like 4 spontaneous rewards throughout the day, but she never gets that sticker at the end of the day, the star on the reward chart, because it's so hard for her to not hit. So she still hit, but not as many times. And maybe after 2 weeks of systematically using these spontaneous rewards, you get it down to no hitting. And this is why you only want to use one, focus on one, maybe 2 at a time, because it's a lot of work to be handing out this stuff for those really hard behaviors you want to systematically target, especially if there's a lot of behaviors. You just have to pick the hardest one to tackle first. The nice thing about the spontaneous rewards is at first they're unexpected, and then they kind of pick up on it. They're like, oh, I get a tic tac if I'm gentle with my brother. I want to do that because they're getting your positive attention too, right? We want to use it frequently to increase desired behavior. So they might not get it every time. Another time and place that can be really helpful to use spontaneous rewards is grocery shopping. At the end of every aisle for keeping their body calm, they get a tic tac. Or they get a tic tac at the end of every aisle for staying close to the cart if they're walking. Things like this can also be easily implemented when outside of the home. Like I said, just stick it in your pocket. So you want it to be something that can easily transition to different places. And making sure it's something they like. If your child does not like raisins, that's not going to be a very effective spontaneous reward. They're not going to work for that. So be thinking about what are some low to no cost rewards that you can use. That's going to be an important piece of it too. And then to make this even more effective is we want to do what's called double the impact. So double the impact of reward by coupling it with a hug, a kiss, a high five, some other intangible celebration and acknowledgement. Susie, oh my gosh, you did such an amazing job today of using gentle hands with your brother. I'm so proud of you. So you're giving her a big hug, you're really celebrating, you're praising, you're making her feel really good. This is one of the most effective strategies for these kids. They just want to feel loved, they want to feel recognized, they want to feel seen. The next piece to positive discipline with our preschoolers is focusing on routines. Those help kids feel safe, it helps them know what to expect, and it reduces the number of commands needed because there's predictability in what's happening. For kids who are in placement, this is crucial for them because there have been some level of routine break outside of their control, and we want to help them feel like their world is back in control again. So thinking about what are the benefits of routines? What are some of the barriers of routines? We talked about some of the benefits. Some of the barriers can be that they're resistant to creating routines because it's not what they're used to. Barriers can be that they've never had them before, and so it might feel out of control. But you still need to know and trust that it is crucial for their predictability and their sense of safety to put them in place. Even if they're very strongly resisting it, just know how important it is for them. Other barriers can be you don't have a set schedule in your home, especially when you first bring a new kid into your care. You're figuring out how is that going to work into your world, and so it might be hard to put routines in place when you don't even have one in your home yet because you have this whole other person. So honor that, recognize that, and then when you feel ready, put some routines in place. So lots of different types of routines. There's morning routines, nap time routines, bedtime routines, any kind of separation routine, like when you're going to work or they're separating from bio mom or dad, going to the grocery store, going to any sporting activities for themselves or anyone else in the home, going to the library. If you can think of any other types of routines, getting ready for school routine, but having a predictability to what that's looking like. And then what can be really helpful is coming up with a visual chart with images, because they can't read yet. So having actual pictures of like the morning routine. We're going to get out of bed, we're going to get dressed, we're going to go to the bathroom, or at least try, we're going to take a bath, we're going to eat breakfast, and then head off to preschool. And it can be fun with kids to actually like have them come up with like characters or pictures they want to use to put on a a routine chart. And then you can put it in their room or somewhere that everyone can see it. So ways to effectively implement new routines. So again, you want to discuss it at that neutral time. Don't have to go anywhere. Nothing stressful going on. You want to get the whole family involved so everyone knows what the expectations are. So it could be a family meeting you're having together to talk about. So it could sound something like, I've noticed we haven't been getting out the door on time in the morning to get to preschool, and I want to help it make it less stressful for everybody. So let's go talk about how we're going to do that. Maybe you're going to implement a timer. Susie, I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes, and by the time that timer goes off, when I come back to your room, I need you to have your clothes on. And then, okay, Susie, I'm going to set the timer again for 5 minutes. I'm going to put it in the bathroom. When the timer goes off, I need you to be done brushing your teeth. Some kids need you to actually support them through that because their focus and attention is not there. But whatever the routine needs to look like, everyone has mutual understanding, everyone's on board. Again, using pictorials for kids, for visualizations, if that's going to be supportive for them. Be consistent. So it's not going to work well if you change the routine regularly for your own benefit. That's not going to let the kids know what to expect, and then they're not going to have a routine. So identify like what are the barriers going to be ahead of time, and make sure that the routine is realistic for those barriers that might come up a lot. And then pick your battles. So let's say that they took a really long time getting dressed and the 5-minute timer went off twice, and they're really not wanting to brush their teeth. And if we have to choose between brushing our teeth and getting breakfast in them, you're going to pick your battles and say, okay, we can brush our teeth when we get home. We're going to skip that step. You don't want to give in on that all the time, but again, like we're praising the process, not looking for perfection, especially when we're implementing something new. And the fact that you mentioned the next step is brushing their teeth, you set that expectation. It didn't work out this time, but we're going to continue to have that be the expectation. Some parents can get really stuck on, we have to do it, we have to do it, we have to do it. And you can explain to them, we ran out of time today and we're going to continue to have this be part of the expectation. Another helpful strategy is having family rules. So for kids about 8 and under, we don't want to have more than 5 rules. More than that will just overwhelm the system, not realistic to have more than that. We want to, having the family rules is going to help reduce the number of commands given, because then you can reference, remember, household rule is walking feet. And giving clear expectations, that's another benefit of having family rules. You can all come up with it together and then write it out and post it for everyone to see. I'm doing this at a neutral time. So typically family rules are going to be things that are really important for everyone to follow. So if walking feet in the home is one of them because you live on a 3rd story and it's really disruptive to people under you that complain about running, that might be one to put on there. Hands to yourself if fighting is a big issue would be an important one to put on there. Taking your shoes off when you come in the house if that's important to you. Things that you find yourself frequently giving reminders of. This is that where it can help, the family rules can help reduce the number of commands needed. So ideally you're going to find pictures, you're going to do it together, and then put up somewhere where everyone can see it. It can actually be a really fun activity. Like kids like to draw pictures and put stickers and just make it a really fun thing. One of the last strategies for positive discipline is the ignore strategy. So when we want to do this is when a behavior isn't harming themselves or someone else. knowing that kids will do what gets them attention, and so we don't want to reinforce they're going to get attention for negative behavior. So when we're systematically ignoring something, we are removing our attention from it. So we're removing our eye contact, we're turning our body away, we're not engaging in conversation with them. You're staying in the general area of where they're at, so you keep an eye on them, but you're distracting them yourself with something else. So you're looking at a bill that came in the mail, preferably not your phone, because that's really triggering for a lot of kids because adults tend to be on their phone so much. Because we don't want them to feel like they're in competition with that. We might turn some music on, wash some dishes, just do something else to distract ourselves. And then as soon as that negative behavior stops, we're redirecting our attention back to them. So, and then what to expect. It may get worse before it gets better. The behavior, focus on systematically ignoring only one behavior at a time. It's okay to tell the child, I'm not ignoring you, I'm ignoring this behavior. For kids who've been in foster care, this differentiation can be crucial for the caregiver and the child. So one example would be a whining voice. If you have a child that always uses a whiny voice, and it really can turn into you being dysregulated because it's like grating on your nerves so much, and it can lead to tantrums for them because they keep ignoring louder and bigger, and it's not getting them what they want, and so then you eventually cave, which reinforces that behavior because you can't stand to hear it anymore. So you can say to them, I need you to use a big boy or big girl voice. And if you've stated that command a few times, I'm not ignoring you, I'm ignoring that you're whining. When you use a big boy or big girl voice, then I can pay attention to you again. And it might escalate and escalate and escalate, but eventually it'll stop. Typically, it does get worse for a couple days before it starts to get better. The important thing is to stay really consistent and to not break, which is really hard. So it'll be important with this strategy to think ahead of time, or what are coping thoughts and strategies for you if you know that this is going to be really hard for you. So if your coping thoughts are, I know that I'm helping them, I'm not doing anything wrong to them, I'm not hurting them, I know this is for their own good. I'm teaching them how to voice their concerns, how to get their needs met, if the whining is the example we're using. And because this is such a hard strategy to use, we really only want to do this for one behavior at a time. We also don't want to give kids this idea that we're just going to ignore them if they're doing anything we don't like. And this isn't about something we don't like. This is about teaching them life skills. We want to teach them to effectively communicate. So what are some behaviors we would want to ignore? And it has to be something where they're not harming themselves or someone else. So I gave the example of whining. What's another one? Anyone think of one? Another one could be, oh, we got one. Screaming, yelling. Yeah, yep, we could ignore that one. It's really hard. It's a really hard one. So when you use a quiet voice, I can talk to you. If they're screaming and yelling, they're dysregulated, so it probably will get worse before better. Another one could be stomping, tantrums, throwing things. Maybe they're throwing their stuffies into a corner when you tell them to clean up and they don't want to, as long as it's not harming themselves or someone else. This is a really hard one. If it's not one that you can do consistently, then I would just opt to not do it. Because if we give in to that negative behavior after we've said we're not going to, then you're really just reinforcing it. You would also want to communicate with other adults in the home what you're doing so that they're there to support you. Not just emotionally support you, but also like what we don't want is the kid isn't getting what they want in that mode of communication with you. We don't want them to go to someone else. I'm whining at grandma and she's not listening, so let me go whine at grandpa because I know he will listen if I whine. We don't want that. Okay, so some discussion questions. Were there any skills we talked about that was new or surprising to you? And you can unmute yourself or put it in the chat.